Really just finished on YouTube. Only 1 minute past, or 2 minutes past now, but I am live.
Hello, hello, hello.
Welcome. Fancy seeing you here.
Hello.
Oh well, everyone was really quite quick. That's good.
Hello, strangers.
Hey, hey.
Long time no see.
I know. Stop meeting like this.
Yeah. I know, yeah, people will talk, Andy, you know.
We've only got 3 people in here at the minute, so
2 of them are us. Oh,
yeah,
no, 3 of them are us.
3 of them are us. Yeah.
All right, well, we've got a full house then.
Well, we must be more because it said Justin joined as well. So
Justin
yeah,
Vegan.
yeah. They followed us on YouTube, I think.
Justin is, go on, finish the joke. Justin is just in.
Oh, Justin, I was going to say time, but okay, yeah, Justin. Yeah, works fine.
Leeds joined. That's interesting. Leeds, eh? Championship.
Oh yeah, I forgot Leeds went down. Who was the others that went down? I don't know how much I follow football these days. I haven't got a clue. Who were the others?
Everton survived. I think Leicester and Southampton, I think it was.
Yeah, because Southampton were right down the bottom, right? Yeah. So
Yeah.
my dad's a Brighton fan, you see, so he's been quite happy this year.
Where are they?
I think they finished 6th.
All
I know
right.
I know they're in Europe because like I mean obviously he knows that potentially I'm supposed to be a Villa fan, and he was like, oh, we finished 1 place above you, and I was like, I don't give a shit. Like, I don't care. I couldn't even tell you who half the team are. Like, I don't care. But I know
No,
I'm pretty sure.
I'm the same. You know, there's a guy downstairs who's a Chelsea fan, and he's always kind of ribbing me, and he's going, where's Leeds? Where's Leeds? And I said, it's in between Bradford and.
That's a pretty good answer. Yeah.
Hey, Joanna and Jennifer's in the house.
Hey, welcome.
So
yeah, we're potentially just going to continue our conversation that we just had. So
we better tell them that we've had a conversation.
yeah, so far, I think it's a lot of people have joined us from YouTube, but if not, we were literally just talking about the Millions and Marshall and various other cases, the use of their language, and how actually there's no reason for us to avoid talking about rights or injustice because people do fully understand it. It's just the fact that they don't extend their language in that direction in the same way that they don't with any other aspect of speciesism. So when those people quite often come out and say, we've done research that suggests this doesn't work, as I've pointed out more than once, that research never seems to have delved into any of the rescue community kind of people or the people that deal with dogs and cats and other animals on a regular basis who already believe that they're doing enough and will actually use their efforts or their voluntary action to justify what they're doing.
Yeah, actually, it's funny in terms of these names that were a little bit of a mystery. Is the fact that I remember now that I started to hear people talk about Marshall and Millions, but because it didn't register that was names of 2 dogs.
Yeah, well, I think because my mum and dad were because my son was telling them a little bit about it when I wrote my poem. And he was telling my dad said, aren't they from Despicable Me? And it's like, no, Dad, them are Minions. So like, yeah, I would imagine that that's fairly common for people that don't know what's going on.
All right, okay.
They also sound a bit like sweets as well. I suppose to people that don't. I don't know. Like I said, I don't know the reason. Maybe someone who joins our TikTok will know the reason behind the names. I mean, for all we know, those names could have already been what the dogs were called before. I'm not 100% sure their background or anything.
Do you know, I've always had this thing from a vegan point of view that you know, people say, "Oh, what's the dog's name?" And I often feel like saying, "Well, I'm not quite sure, but I call her
Yeah, because
Ruja."
essentially we assign these names, don't they? You know.
Yeah, I mean, we give them names. We don't know their real name, so when they're talking amongst themselves, they're going, "Well, they called me
Never thought
Fido,
about
but
that, you
my
know.
name is, you know, Ethelred the Ready or something." You know, I mean, like,
Yeah. No, that's a good point. I mean, I quite often, unless I'm trying to convey the subject and explain what happened, I quite often refrain from telling anyone what breed of dog. If someone says, "Oh, what breed of dog you got?" I'll go, "I want with 4 legs and a tail," because I don't like identifying them by their breed in that sense. But I've never extended that towards a name.
That's ableist, isn't it, Atkins?
Because I've never thought about that. But you're right. We assign these names to them.
Yeah, that's right. And they, in their own kind of thing, they might not really recognize it. Kind of, it might be very.
Or even like it. I mean, plenty of humans get to an age where they're old enough to change their names by deed poll and do, right? So, like, yeah.
Yeah, well, actually, I think it's probably the minority of people who actually are very, very happy with all elements of their names.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. And I mean, to be honest, there are some dogs that have got some absolutely terrible names that I feel sorry for. So I can imagine that they don't appreciate them too much either. Yeah, I never thought about that.
Well, there's some humans with absolutely terrible names as well, isn't there?
That's true. That's true. Well, these are quite, but at least they've got the option of changing it. Dog hasn't really got that option.
I mean, who? If you're called Johnson, who's going to call a son Boris, for example?
Oh.
That's true.
Who would want to call the son Boris anyway? It's like a name from like the 1940s, isn't it? Really, when you think about it. Or what do you? Oh,
Well,
your new baby
yeah.
boy's beautiful. What do you call him? Boris.
Ironically, with imposed names, you know the band The Who.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, they've got a single called Boris the Spider.
Boris the Spider.
Yeah,
Every
Boris
time I
the
hear
Spider.
the word the name Boris, I always think of it as Lockstock, Boris the Bullet Dodger.
Oh, Boris the Bullet Dodger, yeah.
Yeah, it's
Why
either
is he called
Lockstock or
Boris
the
the
other one.
Bullet Dodger? Because he dodges bullets.
Is that the Vinnie Jones thing you're talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's the first one of that little Guy Ritchie series. Yeah, I love those
yeah.
films. To be fair,
Well, I'm
Lockstock and
very proud
Snaps
to
used to
say
be
that
like
I've
my
never
childhood.
seen any of those, so I haven't seen any of those ones.
They
So.
are good fun. I haven't watched either
Yeah,
of them
they
for
are really
years,
good.
but I probably still know them off by heart.
And have you ever seen this? What do they call it? This Fast and Furious, right? Have you,
I've
seen
Yeah,
one?
seen. So there's about 10 now. I think I've seen the first
yeah.
two. I think
I think I've
maybe
seen
the
them
first
all, but
three. I don't.
I,
Maybe.
I only watched like kind of half watched after. So I watched the first two, loved them. Watched the third one, wasn't so good. Fourth
What
one,
happened?
back.
What happens in the third one, Kev? Because the
Yeah,
second one, when it's got Tyrese in, isn't it?
yes,
Yeah.
the third one hasn't actually got any of the original casting, I think, apart from the very end. But it's in Japan, so it's the story of
Is
this
that the
American.
Tokyo Drift one?
Yeah,
I've never watched it. Yeah, that's when I
so
stopped. I don't know any of them after that. Yeah.
yeah, it's the story of this like college school dropout from America. Um, he ends up getting shipped off to his dad's house in Japan, I think. Gets in the car scene. He was in the car scene in America, but he gets in the Japanese car scene. The only thing that I really like about the movie is there's a Nissan Cube in there, which is like secretly, not a secret now, but my absolute favorite car of all time. But there's like a Hulk version of the Nissan Cube where it looks like the Hulk's trying to burst out of it.
Oh, right.
Looks,
Okay. I
looks
was going to
absolutely
say, I
fantastic.
thought I'd only seen the first two. Yes, that makes sense. I've never
But
watched that one.
yeah, Tokyo
I
Drift's not
thought the
great.
third one was when Rocky had to fight Apollo.
But I have noticed that, like, I mean, we was talking about this on Facebook not long ago, but these days they don't make new films. They just re-release films that came out 25 years ago. And they're basically doing what I'm doing with the YouTube playlist. Basically just enhancing the audio, chucking them into HD, refreshing the actors a little bit, and just going, yeah, have it again, who cares?
I don't know what
Yeah,
you're talking about. The Little Mermaid's a fantastic original film.
Yeah, obviously, yeah. That's
well,
all I see these days. Honestly, every time
the
it's on
sound
the set
effects are
list.
good, but the acting is crap in the
Yeah,
main.
well, yeah, that's very true. The acting now is, I don't think any. I mean, obviously the CGI and effects and all that is miles better, but the acting, no, you used to have to be able to act in a film, whereas now you don't really have to.
I would argue the acting's better because back in the day when you were acting, there was actually something to act with. Now it's just, a tennis ball and a stick. So you know where to look.
I didn't think about that for where you literally just stood in a room and everything else is added
Everything
afterwards.
else
Yeah,
is just
I
green.
suppose, yeah, they used to build sets far more and all that kind of stuff. I suppose it was easier to be immersive in the olden days.
Yeah, you can't see method acting working too well with a CGI screen.
No, that's a good point. To be honest, you'd lose all of that immersion, wouldn't you? Because some of these actors, I think Christian Bale's one where you have to kind of live the role for a little bit before you start actually portraying it. Like they become that character in their real life for a bit.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that
he
was
did, yeah.
Dustin Hoffman did that as well. Apparently, Laurence Olivier said to him one day, why don't you try acting, dear boy?
Graham says they also drive faster as the films progress.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
All right. Cool.
Well, it's because they're allowed to change gear. One, so the fourth gear in the fourth film.
All right, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I don't. How many actual Fast and the Furious films are there legitimately these days?
I think they've just done the 10th one, haven't they?
10, right? Flipping out, there's a few to catch
Yeah.
up. But then again, I suppose it's a bit like that with the Halloween films. Every single Halloween, they bring out another one and they'll go, the last time that you'll ever see Michael. Next year, he's coming back again and again and again and again and again until someone finally says enough.
Well,
And they won't.
the Scream franchise cottoned onto that, didn't it? Because they were like, they killed everyone off in the first one. And then they were
I
like,
first heard about double clutching, funnily enough. Yeah, they used to have to do that with buses and lorries, didn't they? Double clutching.
What's double clutching?
You put the clutch in. I think you put it into neutral, let the clutch out, put the clutch back in, and then change gear.
What does that? Does that give you the extra boost of the clutch?
I think it just disengaged one gear from another more smoothly.
Yeah.
I think.
yeah, it does. Yeah, it puts it into complete neutral, so it's easy to get at the next gear. But you wouldn't do that in a racetrack because it would slow you down. I had a friend.
Yeah, I was thinking that takes more time, surely.
Funny story when
It
Fast
doesn't
and
matter on a
Furious,
bus though.
I think it was Fast and Furious 3 came out, and my mate had just passed his test, and he thought double clutching was just when he dabbed the clutch twice before he took it out of gear. So he was going around everywhere in his 1 litre Citroen Saxo, double clutching absolutely everywhere.
I think it was also the case, wasn't it? Up until about the 70s, you couldn't put a vehicle into first when it was moving. It had to be completely stationary before it would go into first, right?
I don't know.
That
That was way before my time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I mean. It was. I think there's something called, some synchron mesh or something.
What? So you basically have to come to a complete stop in second before, or
Yes.
what?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Okay.
And then you would put it into first. Yeah, that's right.
All right. No, I didn't know that.
Mm.
But to be fair, in terms of driving, I've only been driving 4 years this year, so not that long really.
No, that's not very long, is it?
No, so I was a late passer. I passed when my son moved in with me full time because I needed to. I had to change my whole life around. But before that, yeah, I always just I was just made use of public transport or walked everywhere. And I had a bike for quite a long time as well until someone nicked it.
A late passer.
Yeah, well, it was. I never had a need to drive. All my friends when I was younger used to drive, and then I had a job for a long time when my boss used to pick me up and drop me off, and yeah, it just never sort of until I needed to, and then I learnt. Yeah, and to be fair, I wish now, obviously with hindsight, that I'd have learnt a long time ago, but it is what it is. It's certainly a saga to learn to drive now.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's a bloody fortune as well. I mean, it wasn't cheap when I learned to drive.
It's an absolute fortune, yeah, to learn.
It was weird in Ireland, because I think there was one time when they were kind of almost like just giving licenses to anybody.
Really?
Yeah, and then they had to kind of clamp down. But I think people, in their 60s and into their 70s, they you virtually just kind of filled a form in and you got a license, that kind of thing.
Yeah, there's a huge queue now, like a waiting list, just to apply for a test. Let alone the pass rate's not brilliant. I think most people take 2 or 3 goes now, but it is difficult. I know it's difficult, and they make it even harder than it should be. Because obviously, I suppose they don't want too many people passing. Can't have too many cars on the road.
I was working for Ford's, right, and I did a night shift and went straight from night shift to do my motorbike test, right, and it said on the appointment, do not park on the forecourt. So I parked around the side, right, So they did this thing where, very formally, they kind of go, right, ladies and gentlemen, go and stand by your vehicle, this kind of stuff. And so I go and kind of, push the bike out to where everybody else had their vehicle, because they were also parked on the road in cars, right? And my instructor went, "You were told not to put the vehicle on the forecourt." I said, "I didn't. I put the bike around the thing." And he said, "Well, that's the same thing." I said, "Well, no. You like the forepaws of an animal. That means the front. Doesn't mean the side." So I had a row with this guy before he tested me, and I wonder why I failed.
That's always a good start to a driving test, isn't it?
Yeah.
You are correct.
I know I was correct, but I suppose I should have just gone, "Oh, I'm terribly
Probably
sorry."
could have just said, "Oh, I'm really sorry." Yeah.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, didn't have the sense. I suppose I was pretty tired after a night shift, so
Yeah.
which
No,
wasn't a great
the
idea
first
in the
time that
first
I
place.
did
And
my
then
theory
I got
test,
a row.
I failed because I didn't take the piece of paper. I only took the plastic card, and apparently you had to take the green piece of paper as well.
Oh yeah, the bit that you don't need anymore.
Yeah, the bit that, and then literally within a few weeks of me, because I failed that test because I had to go back and get my piece of paper, and by the time I got back there, obviously I'd missed my slot. Within a couple of weeks of that happening, they changed it, and you no longer needed the green piece of paper. But I never got a refund.
That
I
driving
think it was
examiner
about
would have known
45
that
quid
as
for
well.
the theory test. It's not cheap.
Nah, it's not cheap.
You should have said, "Oh, I can get that back to you in seconds if I drive at 90 miles an hour."
Yeah, sadly, I was quite a distance from the test centre at that point, and it took me like 45 minutes to get home and get. I mean, I literally did leave and go home as fast as I could and come back, but they didn't let me resit. It was just an instant fail.
Well, you were probably back too early.
But yeah, just because I didn't take the piece of paper, basically.
All right, how bizarre.
Yes.
And then you've got a theory test now as well.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. This was the theory test. It wasn't even my practical. This was just the test on the computer. You had to show both your paper license and your card one at this point, and then not long after that, in between, in fact, me failing that test and waiting for my next one, they scrapped the piece of paper.
The examiner would have known that as well.
Yeah, I know they would have known that. How could they not have known that? They'd have been warned for months. It's not like they'd just been told the day before. I know.
Yeah. When he went back to his office, he was sniggering.
Yeah, that's exactly what my dad said. Again, they'd have been taking the piss out of you afterwards, knowing full well that change was coming in. Yeah, they would, but that's totally wrong.
He was sniggering like Muttley.
Well,
yeah, to some people, that's enough to, they might not rebook again. That's a massive dent because it made me feel shit. Imagine
taking the theory post-veganism. What should you do if you're driving and a cow on the road? I
think he's going to put assaults here.
And it's unsafe to stop. Well,
Well, I can tell you what my instructor told me, that unless it poses a danger to us to hit the animal, if there's a car behind you, unless it poses a danger to us in the vehicle to hit the animal, i.e. it's big enough that it will cause serious damage, like a deer, cow, horse, we can't stop. If there's a possibility that you will cause damage or an accident to the car directly behind you by slamming your brakes on, you are encouraged to hit them.
Christ, I don't emergency stop if there's a bird sitting in the road.
I do, and did numerous times on my lesson. In fact, the one day I thought it was a bird in the road and it was a crisp packet. But it still showed my intention. Yeah, I mean, like I said, I've only been driving 4 years. But I've never had anything that I regret or anything like that. So that's like,
My sister got told off by her driving instructor for doing an emergency stop because of a bird.
Yeah, honest, Mark, because I asked the question, and they basically, how it is, if you've got no one behind you, if you're on a country lane and you're on your own, then obviously, yeah, it's fine. But if there's a car behind you and potentially you could cause an accident to them by stopping, you're not supposed to stop. You'd be in the wrong.
Well, here's a bit of driving information that people who are bringing their car over to Ireland will be interesting. When I first came over, this is 2005, for some reason I ended up on this website talking about how to drive in Ireland, and basically saying that when when the lights turn to amber and then red, don't stop on amber, because usually in Ireland a couple of cars go through on red, right? And they said that if you stop on amber, the chances are somebody's going to crash into the back of you, because they're not used to people stopping,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so what you've got in Ireland is that when the lights go to red, there's still a delay before the other lights go to green. Whereas in Britain, as soon as the lights go to red, it simultaneously goes to red and amber.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen in Ireland. In fact, there isn't a red and amber in Ireland.
So in Ireland, when the light goes red, you don't brake, you accelerate. Just to make sure you get
Yes,
through.
yeah. They kind of expect a couple of people to go through the red light. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And because I noticed when I went back to do a veg fest, and I was just like walking through Bristol or wherever, I noticed that as soon as the light went red, the other one changes, and I was thinking, blimey, that wouldn't happen in
Yeah,
Ireland.
it's within a few seconds. Usually, the other cars are just about ready to start moving.
Yeah, well, you don't get, like it's very. I think in England, maybe India is the only place where you get red and amber. Everybody
Yeah,
else goes from red straight to green.
yeah, they don't have an American stuff, do they? I only know American kind of because I've never been there, thank God. But because of the movies and stuff, obviously, it's just like two lights hanging from a, I don't know, the traffic lights in America, aren't they? They kind of hang above your head, from what I can
Yeah.
gather.
Oh yeah, those kind of stringy ones. Yeah, I know what I mean. Yeah. Well, you get a few of those on hills, don't you? In the civilized world.
Funny, that's small.
In the civilized world.
In the non-Trumpian empire.
Here's
Yeah.
an interesting story from this week from the plant-powered household. Tammy helped a bee cross the road the other day.
I did. I picked him up with my finger and put him on a flower and he flew away.
A bee.
A bee, yeah. So there was, so there is a bit of a story to it. There was a bee in the road taking a bit of a rest, as bees generally do, because they get obviously quite puffed out quite quick. So as Tammy walked past, she thought, I can't leave that there because he's going to get squished. So she picked him up.
I need to go and flower some avocados.
Yeah,
I
she
was about
put.
to say that's not a very vegan thing to do anyway, because vegans don't care about bees.
I know, yeah. Leave the avocado
Well,
alone.
funnily enough, she's thinking about some tattoo design. So she's just getting booked in to get a tattoo done, and she's thinking about a design after this one to the next one. And she's like, I really like the idea of a bee on a flower. I was like, make sure it's an avocado
Yeah,
flower.
make sure it's an avocado flower, yeah.
Yeah, because like no one will really know what an avocado flower looks like, so it'll be one of those really subtle kind of, really kind of cool subtle things that you could do. But yeah, she put him on a flower. He must have, I'm assuming he's caught his breath, maybe he's had a drink and flown away.
I love that story, but I've never heard it being described that a bee gets puffed out.
I can only imagine it being quite
What
quite
you do is you have a look,
exacerbating
and if
flapping.
you see a bee all bent over, kind of like with arms on the four knees, then you know that they're puffed out. Yeah.
Puffed out,
Yeah.
yeah.
Going, oh, wow, this buzzing about everywhere.
Well, they do say that they're going on strike, don't they? Because they want fewer flowers and more honey.
Oh, yes. Better rates of pay.
Like B movie. I absolutely love that
I
movie.
honestly think though, B movie is how a lot of people think that the world is.
Yeah.
I think that a lot of people seem to get their realism of the world from like Disney films and those
That's
kind of
supposed to be
things.
Bambi, isn't it? And do you remember that one called? Is it called Farmyard or something? Where all the male cows had udders.
I don't know that
Do
one.
you know which one I'm talking about? It's one of the talking cow cartoons. It's fairly recent. It's not an old one like Bambi or anything.
I can't even think of one that has got talking cows.
Okay. Anybody in the chat? No. Oh, barnyard.
Oh, but okay, I don't know it then. Yeah, it's not one I'm aware of.
Yeah. Because it was weird because they had bulls kind of, and they stood on their back legs, but they got udders.
Oh, hang on, is that the film where there's a particular scene in it where one bull has to fight off some wolves? Because if so, I think I've seen that scene made into like a song on YouTube, but I haven't actually watched the film because I wondered what film it was from.
It's just
Well,
I've just now got in my head the concept of a kids movie where you can milk a bull. That's just not right.
Is that where that bull milk thing came from that we got asked about a few times?
now, careful where we're going with this now, people.
Oh yeah, because for a little while that was one of those things that people kept talking about. I mean, and I just assumed that they were being scammed. But maybe that's where the belief came from. Maybe they'll watch the film.
Yeah, well, interesting because obviously, again, but I mean, on a serious note, of course, that betrays some real kind of ignorance, right? In terms of whoever was in charge of the filmmaking. First of all, the people who kind of commissioned it, drew it, coloured it in because it was a cartoon and all the rest of it. And nobody noticed all through the production, and unless they did it on purpose, which you'd think, how could that be?
Yeah.
But also, do you not think it's just because the mass majority of public just assume that all cows have udders?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, but it's
They
again
don't,
that,
they
that
don't,
kind of
Could well
issue.
be that. But yeah, I mean, when you actually think about it, I mean, that's a good
it,
point because we're not talking about like they drew the picture once and it's a mistake. Like we're
when
talking hundreds of thousands of slides where they drew those udders in over and over and over and over and over again.
But if you ask the majority of the public why cows have udders, they go for milk. But like they wouldn't make the connection with actually no, it's only female cows and it's to feed their offspring. They're actually, technically breasts, I suppose, for want of a better term.
Well, unless they're
Um,
making an assumption. Well, you see, I was going to say maybe they're making an assumption that because we've got nipples and breasts, male humans.
I've got nipples. Can you milk me?
Well,
yeah.
you could, but you don't get a lot.
Well, I mean,
I couldn't resist the meet the parents quote then.
I, do other male animals not have nipples? I can't say I've been, trying to
Well,
rub me dog's nipples or anything, but
my dog's got nipples, so I'm guessing
yeah,
so. I don't
yeah,
know if it's exclusive everywhere though.
yeah.
Yeah, I think boars have nipples.
Yeah, I would imagine that in terms of like smaller ones, that
Maybe
I would
not.
guess it's kind of common
Or
for all mammals, but I'm not sure
I
actually.
suppose it could even be a case on like really small animals, like a rodent or something. It's possible that they do have nipples, but they're so small they kind of
Yeah, and obviously
recede.
you've got quite a lot of them are covered by
I
fur
got a
things, but
terrible mental image now of all our
I mean,
audience
if you actually think
flipping over
about
their
how
animals.
evolution works, so to speak, then it would make sense because there's only very subtle differences between the two sexes, so to speak, when we're coming through that process. So it would make sense
Yep.
that there would be a carryover for the males to have nipples, just different nipples in the
Yeah,
same
yeah.
way we do. It just makes sense, yeah. They wouldn't have a completely different design. But it's actually something I'm not 100% sure of. Like say horses, for example. Do male
And
horses have nipples? I'm not sure about that because you'd potentially think you'd see those. But I don't know. I can't say I've ever looked.
and he's going to start getting a name for himself now. He's going to be like the animal nipple
It is
inspector.
an interesting point though, because like from that evolutionary point, you'd think, well, yeah,
Good
in
one.
theory they will have. If the females do, the males will, because like I said, they're going to have the same design. It's only going to be a few subtle variations. But yeah, I'm not actually sure.
There we go. There's a pondering thought for the audience. Do all male mammals have nipples?
We're still on the nipple question, are we?
Yeah, yeah. We can move on from nipples there. But yeah, it's an interesting thing. I'm not sure. It's not something I've ever thought about, in all honesty.
Just in vegan Lavance, I also thought as a kid that they never stopped making milk, which of course is a common myth. But I'm always amazed that there's not a gender divide here, and there isn't, which is bizarre.
Well, I suppose if you don't make the connection that there needs to be some form of childbirth in order for a mammal to make milk. You don't have that connection with animals. A lot of people don't have that connection with animals. Then why would you have the genderfied connection with the fact that they've got they're creating milk? So if you don't connect with the fact that there needs to be some form of pregnancy, then you maybe wouldn't think about a
Yeah,
male
to
and
be
female.
fair, I'm sure we've all had at some point that response where someone said, "How does dairy equal death?" or whatever, because they don't consider the male aspect. They just think cow milk. Yeah, you're right.
Well, a lot of vegetarians ask that question.
Yeah, I'd not really thought about it that way, but I suppose if they just think that they're kind of asexual in that sense, that both male and female produce milk, or they don't think too deeply about it, would you explain why they don't think there's any death involved for the most part? But that's pretty worrying. Why they think that? Because I mean, no one's lied to in school. Like I've heard people say before that like they're told in school that cows are completely different. But like you can check what you can go on like GCSE Bite Size right now, for example, on the BBC's website, and you can look what they're telling you about mammals. They're telling you the truth. It's marketing that's changed your mind.
They shouldn't call it bite size if you talk about nipples, though, should you?
but so it's not your education for the most part that's making these disconnections. It's the marketing that comes every time you go home and watch shit in between. That's the problem.
Yeah, it's well, as usual with the internet, I'm getting conflicting answers. All or most male mammals have nipples, and some people say all.
Male horses don't have nipples. Okay, because I was going to say I've spent quite a bit of time with a couple of male horses, and I would have thought I would have seen them in terms of size. So that kind of makes sense to me if true. I just wonder why.
Yeah, it's weird, isn't it?
Hmm.
But I mean, I always say, of course, it's because of the fact that we've got this human supremacy problem where we don't identify as apes, and we don't identify as mammals, and we don't even identify as animals.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, from a vegan point of view, that's kind of like biology 101. I mean, we deny it. We don't like the idea. It's the same as this idea of hunter gatherers. Man the hunter and all this kind of shite, right? Whereas really, what happened in early humanity is that we were scavengers. But of course, we don't like that kind of idea.
No, of course we don't. No, of course we don't, because it doesn't put us at the top, which is where people want to be. But yeah, I honestly would. If anyone's ever really bored, and not even really bored, just interested, I highly, highly encourage people to go and watch. His name is Aaron Ra, Aronra, on YouTube, and look at his systematic classification of life series. It literally talks you through like the earliest of these species and stuff, way before we had human beings, and then it will show you the animals that existed around the first time that we kind of transitioned into what we are now. So you can see the type of size, the strength, the thickness of their hide, all of these things that massively surpasses the free living beings that exist now. So if you genuinely think that a bunch of uneducated people with sticks were taking down some of these megafauna, you're fucking delusional. I'm sorry, but you are.
Yeah.
It's almost as delusional as thinking Godzilla's real, because the evidence is not there. Waiting for a predator to take down one of these and then going and scavenging what they don't want definitely makes sense.
Yeah, but I remember at school, there's the pictures of the, the mammoth and the group of cave persons with spears.
Yeah.
I mean,
and I mean, one of the most famous cave painting there is that shows the mammoth with like 16 or 17 spears, and it's still charging the men. Yeah, that looks like they're defending to me rather than a hunting party, because obviously that they'd know better by now. It'd only take one time of going out and trying to hunt a mammoth and losing your entire tribe to work out that we ain't doing that again.
Justin Vegan Levance asked a really question. I wonder if I knew more as a kid, I would have gone vegan way earlier. Now that's an interesting thing, because what would have been a block to that would have been your parents.
Yeah.
Yeah.
because that's often the case, that you'll get children wanting to do something on a moral grounds, and it kind of gets squashed out of them by their own parents.
Well,
And that,
or even sometimes your own friend groups too.
yeah,
Yeah, I was just about to
yeah.
say that cultural influences, I think, are
Yeah, yeah.
important in that one. I think for me, I sometimes ponder the same as Justin on that, but well before I went vegan, I was well aware of what happened. But the normal barriers would come up with just a bad apple, they're being closed down, don't buy from them anymore. Therefore, I don't have to worry about it. All these normal things that you hear people coming up with whenever there's an expose released, and Tesco and Sainsbury's drop them as a supplier, and then everyone's happy because whatever. But then the farm doesn't shut down, and no one ever hears about it anymore. So it's like I went vegan at the right time for me, and I think everybody does. Now, both my kids are vegan, so my youngest is, well, he's probably currently too young to make the decision, but obviously he's being brought up in a vegan household. So when you walk through the supermarket, you've got to walk near the bloody morgue. He's like touching stuff and like, what's that? Like, that's a dead chicken. And just the look of horror on his face. Like, why? Like, well, because people want to eat dead chickens. Like, why don't people just eat vegan chicken? It's like, well, yeah, exactly, James. Why don't people just eat vegan chicken? So he understands that he doesn't want animals to die, full stop, to be fair. But I suppose that's that thing, isn't it? Because his culture and his experiences is being dictated by what we allow him to experience, I suppose. So yeah, I think for me, it hit me at the right time. I wasn't ready because it should have hit us earlier with what I understood and knew and witnessed. But I obviously grew up in a rural area and stuff. I was very, very kind of conditioned. But yeah, I think if you give people, or children especially, a clearer snapshot of the reality of how animals are and how we use them, then you're more likely to create younger vegans sooner.
Well, I know somebody who went vegetarian when she was 4 and got a family to follow suit, and then went vegan when she was 6 or 7 and got the family to follow suit. And it's interesting because my kids were brought up as totally plant-based, and they had the best teeth in their school, according to the dentist, which is quite interesting. So that was one good side effect, because I remember one time I was sat outside a supermarket waiting for the wife to reappear with the shopping, right? And my son was peeling a satsuma, sat on in his pram, as it were, feeling as a satsuma. And this guy came up and he goes, "Oh, don't be rotten. Give him some sweets." I've never forgotten that.
Yeah.
This guy actually came up and kind of accused me of virtual child cruelty because the kid was getting some fruit.
Yeah. I can believe that, to be fair. But yeah, I mean, we've talked about it before on other shows and stuff. But if kids were just given, not necessarily the brutal truth, because at the end of the day they're kids, but if they were just given some truth and the choice, the vast majority of them would make the right decision. Why wouldn't they? No, they none of them want to see anyone really suffer as a child, do they? In any way, shape, or form. Even the most basic things upset them. So if they were given the information and they were allowed to make their own choice, so they still got the freedom to consume and use if that's what they want to do. But the vast majority of them, I'm quite confident, would say, well, why? In exactly the same way that Kev's talking about. Why? If you don't need to, why?
Yeah,
Because it is as simple as that for a kid. I mean,
yeah.
it really is.
Yeah, but then you get a bucket of cold water thrown on you by the family.
Well, that's it. It would have to be encouraged.
Yeah,
That's what I'm
exactly
saying.
that.
It'd have to be.
Yeah.
They'd have to be allowed to make the choice, and then whichever choice they make is supported. But that's yeah. I think if that was a thing, a lot of kids would do the educating because the kids would be
Yeah.
the one that were finding out the reasons why and all this stuff, and then they would start speaking to the parents more. But a lot of the time now, the kids are so off put by the idea of even bringing it up to their parents that they don't want to try.
Yeah, in the early days of AV, there was a cube that set up a couple of times in Galway, and we went over there to kind of support them, from Dublin in order to kind of kickstart their campaign, as it were. And this kid says to his mum, he was kind of being dragged away from the cube, and he's going, "Mum, I want to be a vegetarian. I want to be a vegetarian." And she was going, "Don't be silly. Wait till I tell your dad," and all this kind of stuff. And
Yeah, it'll argue it out of you. Great.
Yeah.
or bash it out of you.
Imagine saying that. Wait till I tell your dad. As if like you've done something wrong.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
I think the point you made before, Andy, about like kids making choices is quite key. So Freddie went vegan after finding out about dairy and then connecting the dots with chicken actually being chickens. So every time we were at like the supermarket, whatever, and it was usually things like ice creams and the sweet treats and stuff. You would ask like, "Can I have them?" It's like, well, they've got milk in, so and at that point we were saying like, you can, but you know what has to happen for you to have that, and he would always, always, always choose something else or go without. If like if you was at like a ice cream man and there was absolutely nothing there, or a kid's party and he wasn't catered for, he would choose, even if it meant that he couldn't have anything, he would always choose not to contribute. And I thought that was quite key to begin with, because I didn't want him to feel like it was our decision, it was always his. But now it's very much just the case of the decision's not even the decision anymore. You just go, "Are they vegan?" "No." "All right, okay," and he just walks away. But I think that, yeah, I think James does it as well. But I think as they get older and they become teenagers, I don't want it to become like taboo. It's removing that. It's like not making it forbidden, if that makes sense. So that when their mates are going, peer pressure kicks in. Your parents aren't around, blah blah blah. I want them to still be able to make that choice. Oh yeah, so he went around his mate's house. It was a couple of weeks ago now, and his mate goes to his mum. She's like, he's like, "Mum, can I have £1 so I can go to the shop?" And she's like, "Well, yeah. What are you after?" He's like, "Oh, I want some sweets." She's like, "Oh, you got some in the house?" He's like, "Yeah, but I don't know if Freddie can have them, and he's coming over later, so I want to go and get some vegan ones for him." And that was kind of him and his decision. That's like the influence that Freddie's having on his kid and his mates, who, yeah, and hopefully as he gets older and his friends obviously get older, that continues, and hopefully starts to make people change the perception.
Yeah, it's a question, isn't it, about whether that gets translated into, "Oh, that's good," or that's
Yeah,
very kind, or
yeah,
kind of, "Oh, these vegans are so difficult to cater for."
yeah, yeah,
Could
yeah,
go
exactly.
could go both ways, couldn't it? Really?
Yeah,
Yeah. It's nice. It's nice though that there's the basic, because I mean, there's obviously no understanding from the other boy. It's just a basic respect for him and the fact that
yeah,
he can't have that. So that's nice at the very least.
Yeah, but at least he's got him thinking about it though as
Yeah,
well.
yeah,
absolutely,
exactly. Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah,
We used to have like a standing joke in our family where the kids used to come up and say, "Is this okay?" And we would go, "Oh no, it's full of ingredients." And so they used to be at this kind of weird situation where the kids would run up to you in the supermarket and they'd be shouting, Dad, has this got any ingredients in it?" Like this. And of course, everybody else is looking kind of, what are you on about, ingredients? Of course it has. But it almost became translated into, is it vegan because it's got ingredients in it? So it was a bit of it was serious, but a joke. I suppose we were trying to just make it light, I suppose.
Yeah.
yeah. Vegan Design's got a comment there saying vegan kids dissing animal eaters out loud in the supermarket is pure gold.
Yeah.
We've got a couple of instances of when our kids have done that. I was like 7 and 4, where like I think Freddie, I think it was last year, shouted, walking through Tesco, and obviously they got like the big banners. He's like, "Look, Mum, there's a dead chicken," and like obviously everybody's looking horrified. And then like if you are in like the flesh aisle, when the kids are asking questions and you explain what they are in real terms, not using euphemisms, the looks you get is amazing. It's
Yeah.
like, what's that? It's like that's part of a cow's dead corpse. It's like people just like looking at you. It's like, what? Am I wrong? And the kids are like, oh, that's horrible. Why would you want? Why would that be there? Why is there a piece of a dead cow in here? It's like, well, because people like to eat dead cows. Why would you want to eat a dead cow? That's disgusting. Like when you think of it with those words, it's like, yeah, it kind of is minging.
It's good fun.
Our kids do that all the time. It's just brilliant. Yeah, I suppose. Yeah, I mean, they do come out with this stuff because they've almost like got no, like shame is almost like a learnt thing, isn't it? Which is quite
Yeah, they've got no filter. And the thing is, as well, it's good when it comes from them because it's almost like, well, what can anyone say?
Well,
They're
yeah,
not preaching; they're being kids.
yeah.
So yeah,
I remember being in a restaurant with my brother and his kids, and there was a couple of nuns, right? And they got up and walked out, and my brother's kind of kid leant over and goes, "Dad, I've just seen a witch."
Yeah, I can remember when Luca was really little, and we was uptown, and there was actually a Muslim lady, and she had like a nose piercing that was like, I don't know what it was, but it had like the chain on it, and I can remember he said, "Is that a pirate?" And it's like, "Fucking hell, shh." But yeah.
Johnny Depp.
Yes, if she was a pirate, like, but kids do, like, that's what they do. They say it as they see it, so to speak.
Well, it's that
Like,
innocence, isn't it? It's like they
yeah,
don't
yeah, exactly
see,
that. So that's
they
why I
don't,
quite like those those
yeah.
supermarket times, because it's like, well, they're telling the truth. What do you
Great
what
bit
do
of
you want?
activism
It's
when
it's
someone's got,
great when they don't have the inhibition that they are going to make a fool of themselves.
Yeah,
yeah.
You know.
It's a good bit of activism when someone stood there with like, 2 handfuls of dead flesh in their hands, thinking about, do I want to eat someone's leg or someone's belly tonight? And then the kids are going, that's a dead body. That's the dead body of a cow or a pig or whatever. And you just look at them like scowling at you. It's like, well, you're the one that's got the remains of someone's dead corpse in your hand. So
Well,
like,
there's still a lot of resistance to that kind of language, though, isn't there? On TikTok. I mean, Jennifer gets it all the time. Kind of, what do you mean flesh? What do you mean? It's meat. And this kind of stuff. Well, that's your name for it, but it's actually a dead body and it's
yeah,
flesh.
exactly. You think about it, right? If you use the euphemism of meat, um, every living like being, every fish, every mammal, every reptile is made, including us, is made from meat because meat is a euphemism for, I suppose, in most terms, muscle and fat, isn't it? So we all have that. So technically, we're all made of, because when you get that whole thing of animals weren't food, why they're made of meat? Well, technically, you are. Um,
yeah, and I mean that's just the modern interpretation of the word. Once upon a time, meat is in mite. It just meant sustenance. It just meant food.
it's
Yeah.
and you get that. We've recently obviously had this whole kick-off, if you will, from animal agriculture about calling certain plant-based milks milk, or calling vegan meats meat. But like at Christmas time, we have minced meat all the time, but nobody has a problem with that. We're called
Yeah.
coconut.
Coconut
Um,
milk, yeah, and also
yeah,
coconut flesh as well.
I was just about to say that coconut flesh. They don't kick off about that. In fact, no one had a problem with coconut milk until oat milk started kind of
And
becoming
don't
like
they say
almost more
flesh in
popular.
regard to avocados as well, don't they?
They do, yeah.
Or
Yeah.
is it aubergines as well, maybe?
Aubergines. I think there's a few as
Mm.
well that people refer to as the flesh. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well,
That's
there's a
super
great
true.
in relation to what you've said, Andy. There's a great podcast by Colleen Patrick Goodrow. I don't know whether you're familiar with her.
Yeah.
And she's been around for ages, but she's got a podcast called Animality,
Yeah.
and there's one about the word meat and how it originated and all this kind of stuff, because it just meant food or even good food at first.
Yeah, good food, sustenance. Yeah, like, you'd be filled with you'd be a good meal. You'd be happy afterwards. Yeah, that was the connotations that it used to have.
And even in the Bible, I think it said things like, the herbs and the seeds, that will be your meat or something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah. Yeah, it's interesting, but I suppose people don't look at the epistemology and the history of these kind of things. They don't care about any of that sort of stuff unless it suits their narrative. Then they want to bring up the history. Like everyone wants to talk about what cavemen did until you point out what cavemen did. And they don't
Yeah,
want
you
to talk.
remember that fuss when it was shown that the gladiators were probably on a plant-based diet.
Yeah,
And they were nicknamed barley eaters as well, weren't they?
Yeah, that's right.
When
Yeah.
you, when you think about it, you would not be, because there were slaves at the end of the day, you would not be feeding slaves the most expensive food
of course,
available.
of course you
You
wouldn't.
would
Of
be
course you
feeding
wouldn't.
them
No, I mean, you didn't
probably
know
the
whether
same
they
as
were
you.
going to be alive from day to day, did you? I mean,
Well, yeah,
even during the training kind of thing, you wouldn't.
And I mean, obviously, then you've also got to factor in. It's not like now where we've got prisons with huge fridges and freezers. We're talking about literally like cages at the bottom of the Colosseum.
yeah,
No facilities whatsoever. So yeah, not only were they not ever going to get it because they weren't considered worthy, but how would they have even kept it, stored it, prepared it?
yeah. And not only that, I mean, this is back in the day when you had next to no information about or knowledge around nutrition. You'd have had some knowledge around what's safe to eat, what's not safe to eat, and what makes us feel better or worse if we eat more or less of it. But that would have been about it. Days before science and all that sort of stuff, understanding how food worked in the body and all that.
Then
So
again,
you would,
tying things in with what we were talking about on YouTube, say with Michael Vick. I mean, would fighting dogs be given a good diet or one that's
No,
not
no,
so
no,
great and
no,
stuff?
no, no. In fact, actually, from some of the sort of stories and stuff, for a day or at least, and sometimes 2 or 3 days before a fight, they'd be starved intentionally.
yeah, it get them aggravated, isn't it?
Yeah, they wouldn't give them the best diet they could in terms of the nourishment. No, it'd be the opposite of that. It would to try and make them angry and hungry.
All right, okay.
Yeah, so instincts kick in, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, and for a lot of the time they live a very solitary life. So I'd imagine it's the bare basics all the time. Yeah.
I suppose it's similar to the bullfighting in that case as well, isn't it? Where they could just get them agitated to hell before they send them out.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
fighting
with the
dogs.
bullfight goes on for days sometimes. The
Yeah, it
torture
Well,
does.
and
that
Yeah.
stuff
that might
before
have
the
been
fight.
that might have been the same with gladiators. Then they might be going right. You're not eating for 24 hours, but if
Well,
you
I
win,
would honestly, I mean,
All right.
don't forget. But so I know the film has obviously done sort of this idea that a slave can come up and change everything. But don't forget, like the money that was being bet and all of that kind of stuff, it would have been on the actual gladiators. It wouldn't have been on the slaves. The slaves were expected to lose, and if they ever found a
Yeah.
warrior that was potentially, Russell Crowe, he'd have been poisoned or beaten up the day before the fight. He'd have been starved. They'd have done everything they possibly could to make him as disadvantaged as possible, because that's this money that's on this huge
Yeah.
amounts of money potentially. Yeah, the last thing they want is a slave uprising. So yeah, they'd have been treated like shit.
are you saying that Hollywood often doesn't tell the truth?
Tell the truth about stuff. Yeah, I think. Yeah, kind of. I
Oh
mean, I
wow.
mean, sometimes they're not too bad at depicting a story, but the vast majority of the time, obviously, it's their version of history that makes a good film.
Exactly. That is exactly right, isn't it? Because one man's hero is another man's terrorist, isn't it? When you think about
Yeah,
it that way.
at the end of the day. I mean, most of these times, like they obviously do the research and they obviously know the full story, but they put their own spins on it and stuff because they're in the entertainment business. At the end of the day, they're not making a documentary.
Yeah.
Yeah, wasn't it the case that people, well, not Johnson, but the kind of generation before, people like who was the prime minister before Johnson? Not May, but the one before that.
Cameron.
Yeah, apparently, I think that as a student, I think he called for the public execution of Nelson Mandela. I think.
Oh, really?
Oh,
Hmm.
that's a bold claim, isn't it?
Mm.
Well, they were terrorists, weren't they, in those
Mhm.
days? So,
Well,
like you say, terrorists or freedom fighters. I mean, that's a subjective thing, isn't it?
Yeah, that's true. But no, I suppose, yeah, it does tie into the conversation that we was potentially having before that. I mean, just to go back to the Michael Vick thing, the audacity of that paper or whatever, printing that sentence is almost as bad as him saying it. Like, would you not think as a journalist that when he said, I do regret it because I didn't get put into the Hall of Fame, that you wrote something afterwards as if to say, you absolute piece of shit. You don't even show remorse even now. But no, it's still, even people like that are allowed basically their own say, and it's just copy and pasted word for word. And it's just...
Well, that footballer came out with some words, didn't he, about, I regret it and all that kind of stuff, didn't he?
Yeah. Yeah, he was forced to do a statement because they
I was
played
going to
him
say,
very
yeah.
soon after that happened, like the next game or whatever. And then
Did
I
he
think
regret the action, or did
he
he
regretted
regret
getting
what he
caught, basically. He
caused?
regretted the fact that his
Yeah.
brother put it on Snapchat. Yeah.
He's
Oh
now
yeah,
just got it.
Graham is going back to Cameron. He's done a lot of questionable things. He's talking about
Oh, Cameron, yeah, we know.
yeah,
Not talking about one of them was a
the
step
pig
past
body.
Yes. But again, and these are the people that end up running the country.
Yes. What's the matter?
Was he part of the Bullington Club as well, was he, Cameron? I know Clegg and Johnson and a couple of the others were.
I think he may have been, but I think he was like a generation removed from them.
Yeah. I know he's a different age group than some of the others, I think. So, yeah, but I'm sure he's still part of that little clique.
Well, he always looked the part, didn't he? So that's one thing.
Yeah. That is very true. I forgot about Cameron, to be honest. You don't hear much from Cameron these days. They still wheel Tony Blair out every now and then.
Yeah, I think most people have forgot about Cameron, to be fair. They just like to focus now on the absolute car crash that has been the last 6 years of our
Well, didn't
our
Blair
government.
win 3 times, didn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Despite being a terrorist, basically. Yeah.
Mm.
Because in the States, they can only stand twice, but in Britain, 3 times, is it?
I don't actually know what the limit is in Britain.
Yeah, I don't know what the limit actually is. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think someone correct me if I'm wrong, but I think if you win, you win. No matter how
Most
many times
prime
you lose.
ministers
I don't think you can just carry on. I don't think.
So what would happen in terms of like the vote? You're just not allowed
I
to.
think you would need to step down as a leader, and then someone else would need to step
Oh,
up
so
as
your
the leader of the
party can
party.
remain, but you as a leader can't.
Yeah.
Yes. That's
Okay, that makes sense, right?
Yeah. And I
yeah.
suppose
I mean, the party can stay in
That's
forever.
what I was thinking. There's some that have done quite a few years. So okay, that makes sense, right?
and could you imagine doing 12 years as the prime minister of this country? I couldn't imagine doing 5 minutes of it, to be fair, with the amount of scrutiny that you get. But then again, the scrutiny that they're under at the minute is probably a lot less than what they actually require.
To be perfectly honest, I can't remember who said it, but the fact that any of them want the job should be enough of a reason to rule them all out.
Yeah, that's right. It was said that if you want to be an MP, then that's reason for to buy you from it.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely think there's some serious truth in that. This sort of thing should be done by committee, a bit like jury service, and it should change.
Well, I mean, that's the XR idea, isn't it? People's assemblies and all that.
But we're a million miles away from that. Sadly, we can't even get the people that already hang under the banner vegan to agree on what the movement stands for and what we oppose. So
yeah, but this is to do with things like direct democracy. But the point is about that is, I mean, in the internet age, direct democracy could be possible through Zoom and
yeah, absolutely. In fact, I can't remember which country it is now, but was it Sweden or Denmark or somewhere? They did do that, and their government at one stage was kind of assigned through or a political party. Sorry, were put together through Zoom, basically.
The problem is though, you're gonna have to spend time looking at the contributions or the arguments and everything rather than watching EastEnders. That's the difficulty.
That is a big problem. Well, maybe you could do both. Maybe you could have 2 screens. Have your iPlayer on one.
Right, I'm going to jump out because I need a phone to get me Chinese food ordered.
That's fine. I'm probably only going to do half an hour anyway because we're ordering dinner tonight, and I don't want to make him wait too long for it. So yeah, I'll probably only go till 9:30 anyway.
Yeah.
But if you want to jump on for a bit, Graham, feel free. Needs to do it.
It'll never get here on time. It's got to come from China.
What we're getting tonight? What black bean? Yeah, tofu with green pepper and black bean sauce, salt and chili chips, and boiled rice. I think. Yeah. What are you getting, Andy?
We're having pizza. Max doesn't like Chinese.
The fact that Roger didn't mention curry shows how absolutely shite the program is. Yeah. Well, it's based in Manchester, isn't it? So.
Yeah.
He didn't mention Emmerdale either.
Yeah.
No,
Well, that'll probably be one of the arguments about this show.
And Crossroads. Remember Crossroads?
Yeah, you didn't show a quality to the soaps.
Yeah. Radio guys, I will catch you guys in a bit.
No worries. See you later. Thank you.
Yeah, see you, Kev.
Bye.
I'm going to say Heartbeat. I used to quite like Heartbeat when I was younger. I am talking about like when I was a kid. Heartbeat is what I'm thinking it is, where the woman had like the little bubble car and it was like the police in Yorkshire.
All right, okay. And then there's Casualty is the medical one, isn't it?
Yeah, that's crap. I never watched that. My mum used to watch Casualty, and what's the other one that used to be on like in the middle of the week as well, which is the same place but a different name. I can't remember. She used to watch them. I don't like anything like that. Holby City. That's it. Yeah. There
used to be one called Brookside, which was kind of quite radical. It's funny actually. There's quite a lot of interesting sociology about.
Was Brookside the Scouser one?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, I do remember it, but I think it stopped before sort of like.
I think it was Phil Redman wrote it. I think.
Yeah,
Ronnie in the box. Tonight.
He's busy.
Yeah. All right, we must have some fog because I can hear a foghorn going off. It's quite interesting now, with all this satellite technology and everything. They still use foghorns.
Yeah.
Well, I suppose it's because maybe small boats and that don't have the latest technology and stuff. I don't know.
Could well be. I would imagine so. Yeah, I suppose. And anyone stupid enough to be out doing anything else. I suppose they have to take into consideration people that are out there doing illegal activity, even if they don't want people out there doing illegal activity.
Well, speaking of which, Graham's revealing his violent streak here. I like London's Burning. That's very Guy Fawkes of you.
Yeah. Which time?
What are your thoughts?
Oh.
You just been waiting to jump that one on us all evening.
My thoughts are the same as they've always been, I'm afraid, regardless of who that person is or what they've done for the movement or anything else. Well, if we allow some use, then we can't abolish all use. I mean, it's really as simple as that.
They've kind of reached out and said, "Why don't you come and meet them?" That should have really up, didn't it?
The show about the fire brigade. Oh right, yeah. Actually, I do remember London's Burning. Yeah, yes. I know what you're on about now. I thought you were being pedantic. I don't know what is the current state of play with that whole situation.
The latest I saw was a kind of offer to go and see the situation firsthand, as it were. I mean, it's obviously not going to
change anything potentially. No. I would just look at that as like some of the jockey club turning around to Animal Rising and say, "Come down to the stables, see how we treat them like family." It's not going to change your mind.
It's weird actually because a lot of horsey people, and I'm not suggesting that this person is, but a lot of horsey people do make excessive claims about their relationship with horses. They tend to think it's a very kind of balanced relationship, symbiosis and all this kind of stuff. Because I remember conversations about, and even people like Francione got involved, saying that, well, it is true that horses need to be exercised,
Yeah, absolutely, but you can walk them.
Well, that's the problem. You can't gallop them.
True, but from a few people that I know from experience, a lot of it is actually mental stimulation too. So you could work with them in a school for half an hour, 40 minutes, and that would actually be sufficient exercise. So
Well,
like,
I've always said if you're in the geographical location, why not take them down the beach?
yeah, beach is a great place if you can get to one. Obviously, yeah.
Yeah, that's right. And of course, the interesting thing there is that you get all the people going, oh, I've got this brilliant relationship with my horse, and my horse understands me, my horse loves me, I love my horse, and all this kind of stuff. And then you go, well, let them go on the beach and to have a real run around. Oh no, they'll run off. And you go, well, hang on a minute. You just said that you love each other and that you've got a brilliant relationship and everything. Which is it? That they're trying to get away from you, or they would come back.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's a key point. I mean, and they're on the beach. Where are they going to go? You can only keep really running in a straight line.
Well, I suppose it depends on the beach. I
Yeah,
mean,
but at the end of the day, if that's potentially a risk, then you get yourself a lunge line or two long lunge lines tied together,
well,
and,
you
and,
still
and put your water skis on, basically. Because if they start galloping, and by the time that you're holding on to the end of that line, you ain't going to stop them anyway.
Yeah, I suppose it's down to a lot of the size of the horse, for example, compared with say a pony or a donkey.
So,
You know,
serious point. So, any of these kind of people from a vegan perspective that still think that they need to ride their horses or whatever for the exercise point of view, most of them, how come they don't take their horses on play dates? Because social aspect and the social element and then being part of a herd is probably just as important, if not more important. And nobody makes sure that they fulfill those obligations.
well, ironically, that might mean that they won't come back.
Hmm. But it's like most of the running, the galloping, the whole thing that people talk about. Most of that comes. They don't run on their own unless they're escaping a predator. It's running with the herd, right? So unless you're actually fulfilling that, it seems like it's more for you than them.
Apparently, the horse doesn't like lunging. Is that the long kind of lead
Yeah,
type thing?
yeah, yeah. That's basically like a big long line. Yeah. But I've heard lots of people. I mean, obviously, if the horse doesn't like lunging, then that's fair enough. But I've heard lots of people say that half an hour, 40 minutes in a school. I'm pretty sure it's called a school, where it's like the sand pit pen, or sometimes they're like astroturfy kind of material, and you'd go round in circles and that sort of thing. They say that that's as good as like an hour thrash around the field. And I mean, to be fair, when it comes to dogs, that's very similar. Sometimes mental exercise, like playing a game like Find the Treat in the long grass, that kind of thing, that's just as stimulating as any long walk.
Yeah, and also, as you just said, being with your own kind, and it really upsets me when you've got people who are almost like terrified of two dogs coming together to say hello to each other, kind of thing.
Yeah.
I hate that. But of course, I mean, like that is partly to do with the fact that we've messed around with breeds, and so you do get an unequal relationship
Yeah,
between.
absolutely. I mean, welcome to my life 24/7. Every moment of every time that I ever leave the house with the dog, that's the situation that I'm in. Everyone's absolutely petrified of us because of the fact he's got a muzzle on.
Right.
That stereotype is enough from 100 meters away to the point where
You should put one on as well. That would really terrify them.
but to the point where like people will pick their dogs up, they'll pick their children up. It's sad.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think for some people, the phobia is real, isn't it? So.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And obviously the muzzle, in their mind, that means that a dog is aggressive. That's an automatic. The dog
Well,
needs to be
you're back to
aggressive.
that phrase, dangerous dog
Yeah,
there.
yeah, yeah. You are. As they're wearing a muzzle, there must be a reason for them wearing a muzzle. It doesn't come
Yeah.
into their head that it's a legal obligation. It comes into their head that the dog must bite. And I can understand why. It's just a shame.
Yeah, but it is true though. There is a reason, which is that they're regarded as dangerous.
Well, yeah, yeah. But I mean, potentially considering the muzzles that are allowed and all of this sort of stuff. Let's put it this way: if my dog was hyper aggressive and he got away from me off the lead, even with his muzzle on, if he wanted to cause some harm to another, he'd get that muzzle off very quickly. So it's not stopping anything really. It's just giving everyone the illusion of safety.
Going back to the horse situation, I don't see any bits or saddles being used and anything like that, which is interesting, I suppose. So again, whether if you were to take the exercise argument as being the rationale of it, you might need those control elements in order to gallop them safely, right? Oh, they said saddles, bits, and bridle being. Oh, blimey. Okay. Yeah. Well, I know that Greg talked about bits because, in fact, they put together a display for the stall at one point with all these horrible bits that because bits are interesting because if you look at a horse, you just see the rings at the side of the face. You don't really see what the bit is all about, the kind of a bit of metal under the tongue and all that kind of stuff, right? And then you've got some which have got like jagged edges, but then you've got some soft ones. So there's all kind of different ones. And there's ones with like a kink in the middle, which makes it a little bit easier to have in the mouth kind of thing. But basically you're using them to steer the horse by yanking their head this way or that, right? Or back. If you pull them back, they then can't see, so they stop. That's what all that's about.
Yeah.
You think, well, why do they stop if you do that? Well, if just think of your situation, you're moving and suddenly somebody yanks your head, so you're looking at the sky. You stop, don't you?
Yeah, that's very true. Yeah, I mean that's one of the things I can remember when I was a kid. I used to think horses stopped when you said "whoa." I thought that was like the magic word. But yeah, it's obviously it's the pulling that causes the reaction.
Whoa, trigger.
Yeah, I mean, even in Man and Nature, he talks about the bit in the horse's mouth. It's literally, I mean, he gives two examples: the steel of the slaughterer's knife and the bit in the horse's mouth. So, even back then, it was recognised as not good.
Justin Vegan Levant, I'd like to know your thoughts on artificial colours. You mean like dye? Because there is certainly a problem, and I remember back in the 80s there was a big move within the vegan community to wear processed cotton, from kind of like fair trade sources. So you didn't really have coloured clothing. It was kind of like it's like a dirty grey colour, right?
Yeah.
Because
well, I mean, to be fair, although I still own a couple of black polo shirts and t-shirts, they're all quite a few years old now. Because I mean, one of the things that I've done is made an active effort in any time that I get like t-shirts or anything like that now. Because I know that the black's really dye heavy, isn't it? And obviously the waste on that's really bad too. The amount of times that has to be put through the process to become a black item is ridiculous. So yeah, that's something that I've thought about over the last couple of years, and then pretty much a lot of the stuff that I wear.
Okay, here's an example: Red 40, etc., in candles and such. I see them as non-vegan as a test. So yeah, so these are artificial colours, then, because the other problem with red is the fact that that's where you get cochineal coming into it, which are crushed beetles and everything. So, I mean, maybe red is a particularly difficult colour to produce. But I mean, in terms of pollution in places like India and Pakistan, for example, it's the dark blues and the blacks that are a real problem.
Yeah,
their rivers are completely,
What besides candles? What else are we talking about that you might not know or think about? I mean, how prevalent is this? because it's not something I know too much about, to be honest.
No. It's your thoughts. Artificial colors. I mean, like, I mean, are colors artificial? I mean, like, I suppose what you're saying there is, how are these colors created, right?
Yeah, because I mean, how far does this extend? Because I mean, it's like the top of your nooch tub, for example, that's orange, right? Like, is that an okay color, or is that? I mean, how does this extend to like every product, or are these very selected things?
It's artificial color in anything, but a lot in candy and foods. Um, yeah, well, things like cochineals is a problem there. But if you're talking about the artificial ones, then presumably they are a chemical, which means that they are tested then. Yeah, I mean, I've got to admit, it's not something that I'm really up on, really, to be honest.
No, not at all, not at all.
Maybe it's something
I have to do some research on it, yeah.
we'll come back next week.
Because I mean, potentially it could be something that extends everywhere.
Yeah, it's one of those things that a
You can
vegan.
even potentially say like the banners that are being made.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, that's right. And like ink for printers.
Yeah. So I
You
mean,
know,
literally, even like our literature and our banners and our signs and all of that potentially. I don't know how far this extends. Yeah.
Graham's saying all e numbers, but some e numbers are vegetable based, aren't they?
Yeah, as far as I'm aware, some are definitely because you can definitely get natural.
You see, these are the kind of difficult areas that we can't deal with until we've got a lot more vegans, really.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, the chances are most vegans won't even know what's been talked about, including ourselves. And so, therefore, we're almost like going to have to be in a pretty much vegan world to be able to. It's the same as crop deaths and vertical farming and all those kind of things. This is almost like second level veganism in a way. The first thing is to just get people not to violate the rights of others.
Yeah, I mean, I've thought about this a couple of times before. As we sort of progress forward, and let's just say hypothetically, you start getting a few hundred vegan chemists, a few hundred vegan physicians, a few hundred vegan scientists in various fields, and all that kind of stuff. We may well find out that there are it's animal use that we didn't even know about before because these people never looked at it in that way before, and then they're going, "Oh, by the way, did you know this, and this, and this as well?" Because they're now looking at it from a completely different perspective.
Yeah, but there's also going to be a lot of solutions that we
Yeah,
don't know about.
absolutely, exactly. As soon as that starts being recognised as
Yeah.
like, shit, we didn't even know that it was in this, and now we do. Let's use something else. Yeah, absolutely. That'll be the start of things changing.
Yeah, I mean that is a process situation then, isn't it?
Yeah. Because I mean I think that will happen potentially as more and more people become aware and start realizing other things and everything else and looking into the bigger picture of everything. I think we'll find out that there's a lot more use and oppression that goes on than what we're aware of right now. But at the same time, as soon as it's acknowledged, the reason that it's being acknowledged is because we can finally start looking at solutions for it. It's not being acknowledged because people are going to ignore it. It's being acknowledged because finally they understand the wrong.
Yeah, it's a little bit like I tend to like to say that if there's an issue of injustice, then that's a vegan issue. But a
Yeah.
lot of animals-only vegans don't like that, right? But the same process would go on there in the sense that you go, well, if you're interested in injustice, what about this? You go, oh, blimey, I hadn't thought about that. And, so again, you'd have all these solutions that would be cropping up, but you also have all these problems that would be cropping up that you weren't aware of, right?
Yeah, exactly that. Yeah, as it always is, I suppose. It's just going to be the way forward. Yeah, I mean, I know what you're saying. A lot of times they'll turn around and say, "Well, why is it the vegan's responsibility to solve that?" And it's like, well, it kind of does encompass it anyway. But at the same time, the easiest answer to that is, well, who else is going to? That it really is as simple as that. Who else is going to do it? And if there are people that are already fighting this particular injustice and they're not vegan, then they hopefully see that we're already doing it and join us. So I don't see really what the negative is from it. Us saying, well, no one else is, so why should we? Is no different than the people that won't go vegan because they say, well, most people aren't vegan.
No, I mean it's quite a puerile thing, really. It's almost like because you are, I'm not gonna. I
Yeah,
mean, it's
exactly that. Whenever people say, "Well, what's it got to do with us vegans? Why have we got to fix it?" You could look at it when people say, "Well, what's it got to do with me? I'm just an individual."
yeah, it's when they go, oh well, the human rights people won't do this, and they're expecting us to do that. Well, I don't think they're expecting us to do that. They want everybody to do, what their value is, and the reason that we do it is because we believe in that value, not because they've asked us or something or told us to do it or something.
Yeah, but that's how it's. Yeah, you're absolutely right, and that's how it's seen.
Yeah, but the point is, part of the kind of argument here is that as though we're not allowed to challenge the human rights activists. But I mean, first of all, we are human rights activists ourselves. So in other words, you're challenging people within your own community in a sense anyway. And
Yeah.
you're just saying, well, look, there is this other issue or this extension of the problem, and this is it. But that's the way that everybody learns. But because you go, oh well, I know this, and somebody goes, yeah, but have you thought of that? And you go, oh, I didn't know that. But that's just the way it works, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, what's the most common example that people use when they're trying to get people to understand, say, what happens to others? They'll say, imagine if a dog got kicked in the street, right? Well, it's no different than the human rights issues. You're connecting with something that you already know that they understand. You're on their level right away. So if you know that this person's already against the oppression of this particular cause or whatever, then you've already got a level that you can talk to. Even better if they understand it as injustice, as oppression, which most of these human rights activists do. They don't see it as welfare. They literally understand the injustice of it. Even easier for them to see the connection. So I don't get it personally. I don't understand what's the negative or the worry or the concern here all the time about these human rights activists. But I think it's just misplaced. I wish there was the same level of attention paid to the language and the welfare issue.
Yeah, going back to the colours, the V George. So I'm not quite sure which one is talking here, but that's why I'm looking for a vegan printing company, because it's interesting because it's something that we probably don't think of, and we probably should.
No, I mean, I can't remember when we was talking about this. But if someone had the money, I think a proper vegan printing company that covered everything from T-shirts to banners to leaflets to whatever could not only be extremely successful as a business, but you'd have everybody coming to you because everyone asks the same question.
Yeah, but you might not. There might not be such a thing as Vegan Inc.
But you could be as 100% vegan as possible at the moment and then move forward as, you could be that one pushing the market to say, well, we want 100% vegan ink. But imagine if you were the only exclusive company that were doing things as vegan as possible. You could potentially have you should have every activist as your customers. You should even have some of these big organizations coming to you.
Good luck with that.
But I mean, at the end of the day, like I know that all of my sleeve definitely is vegan ink. So I don't know what the difference between, say, tattoo ink and banner ink is in terms of. I mean, my tattoo is just black. So I've got
Oh
no
yeah,
colour.
that's it. That's interesting. Yeah, I hadn't thought about the hello, Jim, by the way. But yeah, I hadn't thought about the tattoo ink because I know a lot of a lot of the Dublin vegans. They it was a bit of a craze to have tattoos. Last few years, and but there's always one or two places which used to say, our ink is vegan.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I made sure the whole of my sleeve was yes. I made, because before it wasn't something that I necessarily even thought about. I mean, a
Yeah, but
couple of them I
Andy, do
had.
you know if somebody said, okay, well, what do you mean by that, or what do they mean by that?
It was explained to me at the time, and if I got back in touch with her, she'd tell me what the difference was. Like, it's to do with testing, as far as I was aware. I don't think it was about what was in the ink. I'm sure it was all to do with testing.
Yeah, okay. So you got the issue about how to create the color, and then whether it needs to be tested, right? So that's two issues, right?
Yeah, well, like I said, my is all black, so I suppose the color issue didn't come into it. But yeah, it was. I'm sure I can't remember what the company was or what the specifics were, but I'm sure when she explained it to me, was the ink that she had was not tested.
So would you say consume candy with colors that are tested on animals Would you say consuming? Well, no. I mean, I'm lucky really because I don't really eat sweets because I
Same, I was
don't.
about to say that doesn't really affect me, but no, I mean,
No.
I would agree. I suppose for a lot of people, do they know? Like, are these particular products, are they labeled as vegan because this sort of thing isn't even taken into consideration? I don't know.
No, I mean, you see, this is where it becomes a bit of a structural problem. It's not something that an individual can sort out. Apart from somebody, I mean, the only way to really be sure would be to boycott that kind of product. So
Yeah.
you would boycott sweets, as it were. Now, in a sense, I tend to do that anyway because I don't like to consume sugar.
Yes, like Smarties claim they are vegan, but have those colours. Aren't Smarties chocolate?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I don't think Smarties claim they're vegan. It's got milk chocolate in it, hasn't it?
Well, I thought so. I mean, I haven't had Smarties for a long, long time, but I was under the impression so. Unless they have some that aren't now. But if the companies are telling people that they're vegan or the packaging is telling people that they're vegan, then most people probably don't even think about the testing of the colours. They're thinking about animal products, basically, aren't they? Derivatives. They're not thinking about testing for the most part. That's why a lot of people don't think about makeup.
Okay, in the States, Smarties are not chocolate, they are sugar candy.
Oh, Smarties are sugar. What's so?
So,
Give us an
so
example. What are we talking about here then?
yeah, but the point is, from a British or a European point of view, that doesn't sound like they would even taste like Smarties then.
No, that's what I'm thinking. Like,
That's
is
more
that
like
what that covers
that's like
all
fruit pastels
sweet?
or something, isn't it? Fruit pastels or something.
Not chocolate. They are sugar candy. Yeah, fruit pastels. Yeah, or something along those lines.
Fruit
Or even
gums.
even like a cola bottle, I guess.
Yeah, Jim is saying the Japanese have traditionally used tattoo ink that's vegan. Yeah, but we're asking what elements of it that make it vegan, and are there things in vegan ink that really, when you look at it, in full, it wouldn't be vegan really. I know I put that very badly, but that's essentially what we're trying to say, isn't it? In other words, is there something about it that we don't know? And even though it might be labeled vegan, because nobody knows about it, then it might not be.
Yeah. Yeah. There may be an aspect further up the chain, and this is what I'm saying about like potentially, well, as we get more and more of these higher up, sort of smarter and more qualified individuals join the movement, you'll find things about some of these companies that are so decompartmentalized that most of the staff didn't even know, but the higher ups do, and then they put that information out, and we find a solution for it. But I bet you there's loads of things that people have never thought about or even considered that we will find out as time goes on.
Yeah, Justin is saying that some candies use turmeric, so that would be to create a yellow color, right?
So Jim's saying the Japanese, which is potentially what I thought when he said the Japanese one. So it's just come from plants. So it's not just testing. It would be natural ingredients as well.
All right, okay.
Because obviously, once upon a time, when you think back to like the hieroglyphs and the pyramids and all that kind of stuff, I mean, they were more than capable of producing colors.
Yeah, well, I mean, you went back, you talked about cave paintings before.
Yeah, this is it. I mean, but even like a proper range of colors. There's all different things. So I suppose potentially the
Where did they get the reds and yellows from then?
I'm pretty sure the reds come from a plant, I think, but I don't know which one it is. It's the yellow one potentially is normally something like turmeric based. Anything that's dark's normally like I'm not 100% sure, but like I'm pretty sure that once upon a time everything would have been able to be sourced.
Yeah, because I just wonder whether ever the blood was used as a kind of paint. And the reason I say that is because it's quite an interesting thing to actually, like when you see some intricate kind of weird recipe, you think, blimey, who's the first person to think of that, right? But who was the first person to think about tattooing? The idea of mixing your blood with ink. I mean, like on the face of it, you think that might be fatal.
True.
I mean, who would do that, right? I mean, you're kind of sticking needles into your skin.
Well, I'm not 100% sure, but if I remember right, the original sort of kind of the first times that tattoos are spoken about, they were more like scars. So they were like it would be like carved into you, so to speak, and it would be scarred rather than tattoo. And then later on, it started being like they'd rub a color on, and then it became an ink. But I think it always stemmed from kind of representing your culture or your tribe or your people or whatever. That's kind of like they're like an emblem.
But I mean, like I mean, you've got tattoos, but are they kind of healed wounds then?
No, they when you first have them, sort of. Yeah, I mean, I guess in some ways they are. Yeah, yeah, but like only at the very beginning do you actually notice anything. I mean, now they're just part of my skin. You can't even feel them raised or anything. They're just this, they feel like my arm would. But yeah, definitely. Obviously, when they're first healing, they're obviously they scab. You have to call and keep them supple and put a cream or something on them. So yeah, I mean, you are essentially healing.
Yeah, war paint. That's a good point too. I mean, so I mean, it could be things like
Well, yeah, but
native.
the war paint was intended to be temporary, right?
Well, you've got Native American culture, but you've also got Native Australian culture. The Aboriginal cultures and stuff, which was a lot of kind of. Well, again, I don't think that was like tattooing. It's more like it was washable off, wasn't it?
Yeah. Because, I mean, I suppose you could say the same thing for some of the piercings that some of these tribes have, like the big bones they have as in between the nose and things like that. They're all ever so slightly different, varying on which tribe is which. So they're all like kind of representative of their culture.
Yeah, and those weird traditions like I mean that became popular in the 80s, didn't it? The kind of making your earlobes
Oh, like
elongated.
you're stretching your ears. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, to be fair, there's still quite a lot of people that still do that now. Yeah. Still quite
Honestly, yeah,
popular.
but you used to get. I mean, there were some tribes that used to put a disc in your lower lip.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And then you've got that thing about the making your neck longer by putting these kind of kind of a whole series of kind of rings on your neck, right?
That's right. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, what humans will do for whatever reason, what the pain they'll put themselves through.
Yeah.
I mean, what about your tattoo? I mean, like I'm what you call nesh, right? I mean, I'm scared of pain. I mean, didn't it hurt having a tattoo?
No. I don't actually mind having them. So there's a couple of places in a couple of different ones where it's
Well,
been
you didn't feel
sore.
it. You didn't feel anything.
Oh no, you can still feel it, but I mean to the point where does it hurt so much that I didn't want to have it finished or anything like that? Not at all. It was just kind of like more annoying. Is probably the better way to describe it. It's more like irritating than painful.
Okay.
There was a couple of points in a couple of different places where it wasn't very nice for those few moments. But
Well, your next assignment, if you will take it, is to be waxed. Then see if you feel anything there.
I had my leg waxed once upon a time for a
No,
dog
I'm
show. Yeah,
joking.
that was far worse. I tell you that far, 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 far worse. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
even worse that it didn't come the first. I think no, actually, I think it was the second strip that pulled off didn't come off properly, and actually like still was stuck to me and had to be pulled off for a second time. And
oh God,
yeah,
blimey.
yeah. If I could sit here and have all of my tattoos again in one go versus having my leg waxed again, I'll go for the tattoos.
Okay. Well, why did you have your leg waxed?
It was to raise money for a dog rescue. 3 different guys all had one leg done.
All right, masochist. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. It's weird, isn't it? What people will do to it.
Yeah. It actually raised quite good money, actually, strangely enough. We did it on like a webcam thing.
Yeah. Well, that reminds me of my favorite joke. And if Jennifer's still here, she'll know this. My favorite joke is 5 words long, which is masochist hit me, sadist no, which is pretty good, isn't it? So
Yes, it is.
yeah.
All right, you're right. I'm literally just about to finish. Sorry, you only just joined.
Yeah, blimey.
Yeah, we've been non-stop lives. 2.5 hours now, more or less.
There is a culture. I don't know what it is. It might be a part of a Jewish tradition, but I can be wrong. I saw this documentary where the guys they grow beards, and then they rub oils and soil, I think, into their beard, and then they rip it out.
Oh,
Yeah, and apparently it's excruciating. But it's
I can imagine. Yeah.
yeah.
What's the idea of that? Is that some sort of like punishment?
I think it might be a rite of passage. And it's
Right. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, let's face it. If you're going to have your foreskin chopped off,
Yeah. True.
yeah. And then of course you've got the even worse, more oppressive female version of all that.
Yeah.
So.
I don't know. Well, on that obviously delightful and positive note, I'll say farewell for the evening so I can go and get some food.
Yeah, everybody's going, ow, ooh, ow, 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 ow.
But no, I enjoyed it. If anyone wasn't sure what we was talking about, you can pop over to Roger's YouTube channel and see.
Or yours?
Oh yeah, I forgot it's on mine now as well. Yeah, so that's either Roger Yates or mine, Not Your Mum, Not Your Milk. And see what we were talking about on YouTube the hour or so before we came on here. But if not, thank you everyone for joining us. See you next week, same time. Enjoy your evening. Thank you. Cheers,
Bye,
Roger.
everyone.
See you later.